Hey friends, my name is Erin and I'm going to be talking about the best books I read in 2024. I try and keep a best books shelf in Goodreads. It's one of the few reasons I keep using Goodreads. I've mainly switched over to Storygraph, but Storygraph does not yet have like a best of the year shelf yet. There's a lot of reasons I add a book to the shelf. Some were just like really enjoyable reads. Some had very like profound effects on me. Some made me cry, some made me laugh, some just made me really happy. And so I would not say this is the most like prolific list of books, but they all made me want to go run and tell somebody about them. And I think that is a mark of a good book. There are 17, just how many I ended up with this year. It is a little bit lower than usual, but I had a lower reading year, especially towards the end of the year. So I'm gonna start with 17 and work my way up to the top. Number 17 on my list is A Spy Family. This one is volume 6, although I've loved all of it. It's by Tatsuya Endo, and it is a little manga about a spy who has to get close to a government official, and the only place this government official really goes is to his kid's school. So the spy marries someone he just kind of meets and adopts a child. What he doesn't know is that the woman he marries is an assassin, and she married him because she needed some cover, and the daughter he adopted happens to be able to read minds. So it is silly. It's over the top, it's hilarious, and I just love the family you find in these books. Number 16 is a book my brother and sister-in-law got me, I think last year for Christmas, maybe the year before. The feature is female. These are 25 classic science fiction stories by women, and they range everything from 1928 to 1969, I think is the latest one. They do have some authors I recognize like Ursula K. Le Guin and Margaret St. Clair. I think those were the two I recognized right off the bat. But I will say I struggle a little bit with short story collections just because I'll usually enjoy 2 or 3, but not feel like the whole collection really excited me. However, I would say I enjoyed a majority of these stories. There were maybe 1 or 2 that didn't really hit the way the others did, but I was excited to read all of these. All of these packs a good punch. This is a really good, like whoever chose these and put them together did a really great job. I absolutely loved this. So I would highly recommend it if you're someone who likes sci-fi, wants to read a short story collection, wants to read women authors, like this is it. I listened to the next one on audiobook, and this was The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman. I listened to the Thursday Murder Club last year, I think, maybe at the beginning of this year, and I enjoyed it, but I was kind of like, not sure if I was going to continue. However, book 2, really fun, really silly. It is about a retirement community where there are 4 people between like 70 and 80 that just really love to solve cold cases. One of them used to be a police, one of them used to be a nurse, one of them used to be in the MI6, and so they really still have those brilliant minds and get a good mix of those brilliant minds working with the fact that they struggle with technology, and it just really works in book number 2. I almost wish I could tell people to just skip to this one, but you really get the background of the characters in book number 1. I think it was an okay start, but it was a good solid mystery in book number 2, and I really liked it. I also listened to Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. She's one of my top authors right now, and this is a tiny novella, but it packs a punch, and it's a twist on Rapunzel where you meet a knight that wants to save this girl in the tower, but there's a toadling that is guarding the tower, and you kind of get the feel that maybe the person should stay in the tower. But it is mostly about Toadling's life, how she got her powers, how she came to be there, how she knows the girl in the tower. You slowly discover all these things. It feels slow for a novella, but also feels complete. So, book number 13, another audiobook, and that is Bookshops and Boneless. This is the prequel to Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. It was just as cute, just as fun, just as wholesome. Like, it really just satisfied that itch, and had some really cool magical creatures, and it just really felt like it held up. And sometimes with stories, when you really enjoy the first one so much, it can be hard to go into the next one when you didn't really feel like there was going to be a next one. Book number 12, there will always be one of these until I run out of them. This is Lore Olympus Volume 6. It is beautiful. It's just gorgeous. It's fun. I love everything about it, and I'll never get enough of it. It is lower on the list because I read a lot of good books, but don't take the fact that it's number 12 for granted, because this is probably one of my top series of all time. Number 11 I don't have because I lent it to my sister, and that is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I bought this so long ago, like when it was popular on BookTube, and never got around to reading it. And so I finally pulled it off the shelf and just kind of fell in love with it. I would say there are some things that probably wouldn't hold up under scrutiny. The magic system is a little all over the place, but it was just a lot of like hijinks and a lot of introspective moments with the characters. And I think that's hard to come by. I really felt like it rode the balance of silly and lighthearted and adventurous. And then on the flip side, looking closely at government oppression and trauma and just all sorts of those darker topics, it rode that balance really well for me. Number 10. House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. I've really been on a Sarah J. Maas kick, and I just like this. I know it's, again, maybe not the most profound book you're gonna find, but the way Sarah J. Maas is building these universes, is there a redacted version where I can give it to someone who doesn't want the romantasy, but I can still give them the epic moments that really come from this series, Throne of Glass, ACOTAR. All of them have like such good fantasy plots, and so many people are missing out because they don't want the romantasy, which is fair. But I wish I could just find a version of this with all the romantasy crossed out and I could hand it to my boyfriend. Number 9 was a random audiobook I found called I Have Some Questions for You. I think I got this one for free or like on a sale or something. And it is a mystery. It's a professor that goes back to college. And back in her college days, one of her friends was killed on campus. And the person that they put in jail for the crime, she always kind of thought maybe didn't really do it. And so she's reliving the events, kind of trying to question people without really digging too deep. And then there are discoveries made. I will say the ending is not as concrete as I would have liked, but I really got caught up in the mystery of this. I was finding more and more time to listen to an audiobook because I just really wanted to know what happens next. And I love a book that I can't put down. This was absolutely it. Was it a perfect book? No, absolutely not. But I just could not stop listening to this book. For number 8, I have Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. I love Margaret Owen. I've read the Faithless Hawk series by her, and so I've been dying to pick this one up. This is a Goose Girl like flipped story where you get it from the maid's perspective. So the maid stole the princess's identity. The princess has to become a goose girl. In this, you get most of the story from the maid's perspective. Why did she steal the princess's identity? What has she been doing so far? There is a curse. There is love. There is a murder. There is just dark, dark magic. I love a good retelling. I love a good twist on a retelling. And this one was done really well. I will say the only reason it's a little bit lower on this list is because at first, the main character, the maid that turned princess, is a little bit insufferable. I didn't like her, and I don't think you're supposed to like her. She's not really a good person per se. She has some redemption happening, but they played the insufferability a little bit too hard for me at the beginning. So it took me a bit to get into it, but once I did, great book. Book number 7, I have Obsidio. This was the last book in the Illuminae trilogy, maybe. I love these. They have unique writing styles. They have schematics. They have sci-fi tropes all over the place. I will say I still like the first book the best, but all your characters come back together. You meet some new characters. There's kind of all this wrapping up, and I think there's a little bit too much plot armor, especially at the end, but overall it was a great conclusion. It felt in that really good mix of comfortable, because I've read the last 2 books and this follows that style that I love from the last 2 books, but it is a unique story and it doesn't feel like I'm just repeating or rehashing. Spot number 6 is also the finale to a trilogy, and that is Morning Star by Pierce Brown. This ends the first trilogy in that Red Rising saga. What a series. What more could you ask for from a series, really? I think this series is top notch. It is so good. It's so good and so satisfying. The ending is satisfying. The revenge is satisfying. Yeah, I love this book. I love this series. It is one I will reread. It is one I will recommend to any hardcore fantasy fans. It definitely has a lot of like gore, war heavy, and politic heavy, which I think made it slightly more out of my zone, my wheelhouse, than in my wheelhouse. With the politics, book 1 is still definitely my favorite with the competition, but it is so well written and thought out and epic. It feels epic. It's a trilogy that just feels grand scale epic. Okay, we are into top 5 territory here. I'm gonna go with Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. This is part of the Darker Shade of Magic world, but it's like book 1 in the next set. And I wasn't really sure what to expect. I love the magic system. I love the characters from that first arc. And so I was a little bit worried that maybe this was going to fall short. And I think I like it almost as much as the first book. Like, this is almost my favorite book of the 4 written so far. The magic was elevated just enough to feel like I knew what was happening, but I was still discovering something new. I got the old characters. I got new characters that were fun to love. I got old scenery, places we've been to before, new scenery and new gadgets, and I got a new look at one of the Londons. It was such a perfect blend, a perfect leap from what you knew to a new introduction. And I just love it. Love it, love it, love it. I listened to it on audiobook, and I wish I had read it, actually, because I did struggle a bit with the timelines, but that's just me. I kind of struggle with that. It works better for me when there's hopping of timelines. If I read and I didn't read it, I listened to it. Yeah, I adored this book. Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. I read Scythe a while ago. I enjoyed it, but I remember thinking, like, I don't want to continue this series because I just wasn't invested. I really liked learning about the world, but I didn't think the rest of it was going to be impactful. And for whatever reason, I just decided to pick this up. I don't even remember why, but I'm so glad I did. I enjoyed the first part of the book just as much as I enjoyed Scythe, which I did really enjoy. And then the last quarter of the book, you start to see the villain setting up little things and your heroes not realizing what's happening, but you know what's happening. And you get little hints and you're like, is he really going to pull what I think he's going to pull? And then he does, and bigger, badder, worse than you thought. So you get this epic villain moment that just shook me to my core. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wanted to try to explain it to people who had never read book 1 or 2, and I just couldn't tell how big this villain moment was. It shocked me because I really was expecting to not even like this book, and then couldn't stop thinking about it. Spot number 3 goes to The Way of Kings. I finally read it. I loved it for all the reasons y'all love it. Bridge Crew 4. I don't think it's a shock to anyone that it is on my top list. Now that I've finally gotten to it, just took me a while to get to it. I know y'all are preparing for the one that just came out and like probably have already read it. I'm a little bit behind, but I'll get there because I love this one. Book number 2 is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. And you're probably thinking, how does this beat out Way of Kings? And I don't know, other than I just really loved this book. Like, really loved this book, and I don't have to rationalize it. It made me so happy. It had a cute little badger that was riding an ox and a sword that had a ghost attached. I just loved it. It made me so unreasonably happy that it can't be in any other spot than the top. Well, number 2. Okay, book number 1. I have a hard time putting this as book number 1 because the topic is so dark. This is Chanel Miller's Know My Name. And this has to do with an assault that took place on campus. It was very much a huge part of the news, and Brock Turner was a well-known name, but Chanel Miller was Jane Doe for a long time. And so she wrote a book about what it was like to go through the process of being a Jane Doe, of living through her trauma, of how it affected her day-to-day life, how it affected her relationships, what the process of going to court was like, just kind of all of those deeply private moments. She put on paper. There were so many times I had tears in my eyes. It's such an important book because you never know who's going to go through this, who has gone through this. It kind of puts you in that place, and it's a hard place to like sit in and be in, but it feels so important to have that perspective. And I think what made it such an impactful book was the fact that Chanel Miller is genuinely a good writer. So blown away by the honesty, the transparency, and the writing as well. Let me know what your big books were for 2024. Did you have any highs? Did you have any lows? And I will see you all next time. Bye, friends.